Hi, everyone, and welcome to the MLOps Live Webinar Series. My name is Sahar, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Iguazio. I'm delighted to welcome you to another webinar dedicated to operationalizing machine learning and bringing data science into real business applications. And before we dive in, I'd just like to invite you to join our MLOps Live community on Slack, where we answer questions and share practical advice on everything MLOps. We'll drop the link in the chat box now. And today, we'll be talking about a topic that is sometimes overlooked as companies focus on building AI applications. But this topic is extremely important for internal and external adoption of your AI solutions. Today, we're going to focus on data visualization and storytelling with data. And to walk us through this colorful topic, we're excited to be hosting Vijay Pravin Maharajan. Vijay is a data analytics expert working at Siemens Mobility AG in Germany. He holds a master's in electrical engineering and information technology, was recognized as a top 40 data scientist under 40 in India, and nominated as one of the 20 inspiring data scientists to follow in 2020 by the AI Time Journal. He is also an accomplished TEDx speaker. We're delighted to have him with us today. Vijay will be joined by Iguazio's co-founder and CTO, Yaron Haviv, a serial entrepreneur who served in multiple CTO roles before starting Iguazio. Yaron is also the creator of Nucleo, a leading open source serverless platform with over 3,400 GitHub stars, and MLRun, Iguazio's open source end-to-end MLOps framework. Yaron and Vijay will start with a short intro to MLOps, then discuss the importance of data storytelling, provide some key considerations and examples, and mention some open source and commercial tools available for data visualization. They will share 2 short demos on data visualization and how to implement it in a full-blown operational ML pipeline. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to address them all, either during or at the end of the session. We'll also be running a short 2-question poll, so please do fill that in as we're very interested to hear from you, and we want to make sure that these sessions are as valuable as possible for you. We'll also make sure to share the poll results at the end. We've now put everyone on mute, and we're recording the session so that we can send it to you afterwards. So with that, I will now pass the baton over to Yaron to get us started.
Thank you, Sahar, and thank you, Vijay. We're really delighted to have you and talk about this important topic that is in many cases overlooked. This is really also part of looking into the data science, solutions and maybe you can move to the next slide, Sahar. And we essentially have always 2 domains when we're addressing data science. We have the research and exploration part, and we have the sort of production pipeline part. And in both cases, the aspects of visualization and dashboards is extremely important to, there's so much numeric data, we have to visualize it in a way that we can understand that and act on it. In research environments, we'll probably have more sort of, Python-based sort of visualization in the notebook, potentially BI tools, like the ones Vijay is gonna speak about. And in production, we may have other types of visualizations, whether it's like real-time dashboards, portals, mobile apps, etc. And in both cases, it's important to see how to do it in a simple way and how to develop it in a way where it really reflects the full value of the data. Next slide, please. And the main problem that is related to MLOps is how do you develop all those things. So even when you want to build a dashboard, in many cases it does involve some software, whether it's a data preparation software to build up your set of features that needs to be visualized, or whether it's an interactive mobile app that someone needs to develop the front end. And for each one of those pieces of software, you need to go through all of those different steps. And part of the concept of MLOps is to essentially automate this entire flow of packaging, addressing scalability, decent performance, full instrumentation, so it's maintainable, and automation to make it, sort of upgrade and update all the time. Next. And again, as part of this MLOps sort of pipeline where you bring data and you train and you prepare and you deploy finally, one of the actual deployments of a pipeline would be something like an application which has visualization built into it or dashboards. And even throughout this pipeline, at every stage of collecting data and visualizing the data we collected, or preparing the data and looking at the prepared or analyzed data through sort of the eyes of visualization, or even once we're doing training to evaluate our model, visualization is extremely important. Next. So with that, we'll pass this to Vijay to show us, how to do the storytelling right, and I'll finalize with some more example. And going to you back, Sar.
So guys, the important aspect that most of the people fail to talk about is data visualization. So imagine your AI application is almost ready for production, and then why should now we be thinking about data visualization? So that's that area that I would like to touch upon today. And first, I would like to tell you the buzz. I mean, why there is so much buzz, and what's the importance of data storytelling as such. And I'll try to link it with stories and data. So I'll give you a few examples here and there. And going into the tools, like I'll tell you about the open source tools that are available for you to play around with data visualization. And at the same time, I'll also tell you about the commercial fancy tools. Those are a bit costly, but yeah, I mean, the things are things. And then I'll also touch upon uh, regarding data storytelling. So I'll tell you how you guys can get the ability of forming a story. I mean, creating a story out of a data. So that's very important. And so this buzz. I mean, data science is everywhere. So people are talking about machine learning. People are talking about artificial intelligence, and it's like getting crazy. I mean, since 2000, I mean, as you can see on the screen, so digital disruption has pushed 52% of the Fortune 500 companies out of the business. So that's the craziness of uh, this market. I mean, data science, ML, and AI are revolutionizing the marketplace. So why do we have to care about data visualization? So I'll tell you an example. So most of us would be very fond of watching movies, Netflix series, or let's say hear a lot of podcasts, for instance. Why do we do that? Because we all relate and connect easily with stories. So stories can create impact in anybody's life. So some of the stories can be really powerful. Some could be really memorable. For some, I mean, they enjoy funny stories, and for some, they enjoy the emotional. I mean, they get along with the emotional stories. So such is the stories. It is captivating and it gives you an idea. But whereas if you compare stories with data, it's completely opposite. So data can be completely dry. I mean, let's say I would like to buy a pair of Adidas shoes. So why do I have to care about what's the annual sales or what's the annual turnover of Adidas? So data can be boring at times. I mean, you need to be a little nerdy sometimes in order to understand the data. So that's the beauty of I mean, data science. Data science can be applied anywhere, to any domain. So let's say pharmaceutical industries, e-commerce, retail industries. Let's take myself. I mean, like I work for Siemens Mobility, so it's all about trains. Data. I mean, Trains are not just for transporting people. I mean, they carry a lot of data along with the people. So we explore the insights in the mobility domain and health domain, finance, energy, power. So data science is everywhere. And as I said, data is completely impersonal and it is cognitive. And most of the data are vague. I mean, let's take my work. I mean, we have trains running from 1950s to the recent 2020s. Do all the trains provide the same set of data? Never. So imagine a train that was built in 1970s. So that has limited functionalities with limited data. But if we inspect the most recent power pack trains, it produces a lot of data. I mean, how many customers are there? What are the door closure time and opening times? And what's about the components health? So let's say even a train has a compressor, engine, doors. Um, I mean, there are a lot of components inside a train, like let's say fans. In trains in India, we used to have fans inside, but in Europe, in some cases, uh, it's it's, it's a common case, but most of the trains they don't have fans. So that's the point. I mean, we all can relate stories, but not all can relate data as such. So you need to have that domain know-how. You need to have that space in order to understand, in order to get a better understanding of data. And that's how that's the first step, I would say. So understand the data. So understanding the context is very important. So I mean, if you look at my personal experience, I have been with automotive, I've been with telecom, and I'm now with mobility. So it requires some time to get the domain know-how. So one cannot simply take over the baton and he can uh, grab all the attention right from the first day. So one needs to understand the context, what it is, why we are doing it, and how to do it. So what, why, and how are very important in every phase. And when it comes to data visualization, I would say that it's one of the uh, in penultimate or the ultimate step of every data product. So imagine if you are building a really solid algorithm to detect or predict something, and you would like to showcase it to a large group of audience where there is a mix of audience. So let's say people from physics, people from chemistry, people from engineering, people from law, science, or whatever. So, in order to make it understandable for a layman, you have to choose an effective visual. So, it's not about you being able to understand the concept. So, it's about the layman who understands the context. So, it's important to choose an effective visual. So, visual in the sense, be it a bar graph or pie chart or whatever it is. So, based on the context, you have to choose an effective visual. And then, of course, you have to eliminate the clutters. I mean, nowadays we have this data science and data engineering team who takes care of most of these stuff. But nevertheless, as a data visualization expert or a data visualization guy, you also need to make sure that you don't flood too many informations to the audience. So you have to make sure that you deliver the prompt or the right kind of visualizations to the people, and then that creates a attention. I mean, that brings in a focus, and then you have to tell a story out of the data. So let's say, as I said, Adidas or some other brand sells these many numbers. So as a salesperson or as a guy who needs to present this to the management. So you have to figure out in what way you tell a story in order to have an impact or in order to make better business decisions. Because nowadays, a lot of businesses go with numbers because people believe numbers and they started believing it uh, much better than the past. So you have to convince the client or let's say the customers or even the internal teams if you have a really good story. So let's look at some of the stories that are used in the outside world. So I hope you know about Spotify very well. It is a music streaming app. What they do at the end of every year is they do this wrap up. So it's a personalized summary for each and every one of us. So imagine I listen to a lot of Indian songs since I come from India, or I'll check out some songs from Europe since I live in Munich. And a guy who lives in America, for sure, he'll be checking out the songs from them. So each and every individual has a personalized summary from Spotify at the end of every year. So imagine a guy who hasn't even opened this application for like 2 months. Bang! I mean, they get an email, they just check it, and right there, I mean, they just switch to Spotify. That creates a curiosity. I mean, they just quickly jump out of the mailbox and they just quickly log into Spotify to listen to more music. So this is how, I mean, they sort of uh, do and I mean interview your I mean thoughts. So that is one example that I can quote, and Google also does the same. I mean, Google they give a sort of a review. I mean, visualizations uh, can be simple, like what I show here. So it's just a table, sort of a list where Google has portrayed what was trending in the last year. So I suppose in 2020 it has to be Corona, COVID, or quarantine, and that has to be on the list. But nevertheless, in the last year, it's all about India versus South Africa because India played the cricket World Cup. I mean, you know the population of India, so they always go crazy if there is a cricket World Cup. So most of the searches are related to cricket World Cup, and it's the same when uh, football World Cup is also there in a year. So that's how bigger companies like Google or let's say Spotify or even Uber they does at the end of every year. So they create an visualization that creates a ripple kind of an effect that in turn brings in more customers. They bring in more people to check it out, and people also take it as a pride. They just they take this as a screenshot and it goes viral. They start sharing it on their social media platforms. That also introduce other people that are watching it. So coming back to the visualization, so I would say we have data science. I mean, algorithm is there. We know what to project. I mean, visualization has to be there in order to present what's in the data. And there is this third skill, that is narration. So narration is again a key factor to convey insights. I mean, look, if you have beautiful data sets, you have did all the hard yards by pre-processing, cleaning up all the data, and you have wonderful visualizations to show. But what if you lack narration? That is again something that everybody needs to ramp up. So narration is again a key factor to convey the insights, with visualization and data being important proof points. So you have to build a story out of it. So you have to start practicing. I mean, it's not. I mean, it doesn't come overnight. So I mean, I'm sure that anybody that does a good narration, it has to be something that comes by practice. So I would suggest you guys to start practicing it. I mean, for sure, you will stutter, you will stuck at the beginning, and you will probably get afraid of imperfect data sets or imperfect visualizations. You might be, let's say, not sure about what to speak if some question arises. So it's in the game for everybody, including me, including myself. So the key thing is to start. So I would suggest you to practice some visualizations, bring out cool stuff, and then bring out a new story. I mean, a cool story that convinces people. So think in a way that you are in other shoes, you are in a listener's shoes, and then how would you project a data story? So I break it down into three sections. So I mean, like I call it a triple E factor: so explain, enlighten, and engage. So if you have the data and the narration, you can explain. Hey, look, this is column A where you have the names of names in the list, and this is column B which has this and this. So you can explain if you have the data and the narration skills. But what if you have data and visuals? It enlightens the people. So it shows, guys, this is what I have built. I mean, this is the pie chart where I have plotted this and this. Why did I do this? You can show people, you can enlighten people about that. And whereas if you have the visuals and narration skills, you can engage with people. So you can start engaging. I mean, you can pick up some questions from the audience. You can uh, narrate few key instances, key KPIs, key performance indicators from the data. So I would say this triple E factor is very important to sell a data product. I mean, AI products are everywhere in the market. So in order to, um, I mean, create an impact, you have to have this. So uh, how do we do that? So we know we have this development phase, we have this analytics and BI where we have this fancy commercial tools as well, and then there is this real-time operations. I mean, let's say we have this in mobility domain, we have this real-time cockpit with respect to trains. So we could see which trains are running late and which trains are having issues. So you can think of visualization in all three aspects of all three cases. So having a real-time dashboard in front of an operator gives an insight of what's running there currently. But if it comes to BI, business intelligence and analytics, I mean, people prepare a lot of reports. So year-end reports, quarterly reports, half-yearly reports. So they do all these kinds of stuff, and so it's you have to think of which sort of visualizations or which sort of story can be fitted to these use cases. I mean, these scenarios. So for that, we have these open source tools. I mean, these are just 4 tools that I mean that just popped up in my mind, but there are plenty of it. So for instance, you can do a lot of dashboards with Plotly. I mean, Dash Enterprise tools, and there is Bokeh, which is again cool, just Python, and there is D3JS as well, and also Google Data Studio, which is speaking at this point, which is also one of the handy open source tools for visualization. So what if I need to do some drag and drop cool commercial stuff? There you go. I mean, you have this commercial tools as well. So for instance, Tableau is there, Spotfire, ClickSense or ClickView, Power BI is also there. So it's a mix. I mean, again, these are not just the 4 commercial tools that are available in the market. We are just to show you guys that there are plenty, but I have listed 4 that just popped up in my mind when I drafted this presentation. So I'll just um, show you a quick demo. So as I said, you can go with either the open sources like Plotly, I mean Dash, where you can have fancy applications. I mean, you can pick and choose the background, pick and choose the applications that you would like to have. So for instance, this is a Uber data app where we can pick uh, the number of traffic that has been there in a particular city. So you can have all sorts of cool visualizations in terms of a map here. Like I have just zoomed in into a Empire State Building of US, and you could see the traffic. I mean, depending upon the time and depending upon the city where it is, so you can clearly see where the bulk of the traffic is actually going on. And I mean, you can play around. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do. I mean, start from simple visualization. So it's not a rocket science. So imagine here we just have a list of fruits and the amount of fruits that are sold in particular cities, and you can bring out a simple visualization. So this is how you just do it. I mean, you just plot in a simple visualization where you have fruits on the x-axis and the amount of fruits, and then you have it city wise. I mean, the coloring is based on a city. So it's not just about fancy visualizations that are I mean, amazing or impeccable. So you can also start simple by doing simple stuff like I mean, like the same visualization, you can also play around with the background where you can have a different color for the background and the text. So you can plot the same. So it's not rocket science, I believe. And for instance, you can also have a slider and a zoom kind of a thing. I mean, you have all the functionalities you get in a commercial tool. So it's not like the open source tools or kind of cringy, or kind of, I mean, rusty. I never agree with that point. So you have to know the basics, and you need to know which components you need to import. For instance, what kind of data you want to play around. So for instance, you can see the GDP per capita in countries using a slider, and you can see it varies. So previously there were in 1950s, the data was mainly favoring countries in the West, US, UK, and France and Finland. But if you look at the data, after certain years, it's pretty much upside down. I mean, China is, which was down there, which is now slowly creeping up. So you have all the liberty. I mean, you can play around with visualizations where you can build a perfect story out of it, as I said. And you can also do the same with the commercial tool. So I'll also give you a flavor of a commercial tool. So this is Spotfire. I mean, I just, everything is available there on the market, and everything has a 30-day or a 2 weeks trial version. So I mean, just download the versions and import a particular data set. I mean, you can browse the local file, you can import a CSV, or you can connect to any data sources out there, and you can just click and import any sorts of data that you would like to visualize, and then that's it. I mean, you just a second, yeah. So this is just I mean, map of US where I have just imported rough data just to show you how it works. So it's just more or less the same way, but it's kind of more fancier and more colorful. In order to get more colors and better visualization in outcomes using a commercial tool, is pretty much faster and easy. Whereas in using a, I mean, open source, for sure you need to know the numbers, you need to know the design that you have in mind. So that these are the factors that that could stop you or that could run you when it comes to visualization and storytelling. So I would say it's just a second. So it's up to the people. I mean, it's up to you guys to bring out the best in visualization. So it's you need to think from the layman's perspective, as I said. So by wrapping it up of my particular topic, so I would suggest you to first understand the context of any data set that is out there that you want to explore, and think of it as a use case. I mean, why or how do you want to show the data? So is it a real time scenario? Is it something that you want to show a KPI or a cockpit kind of a chart? So just find why and how you need this visualization, and also analyze the impact that it can create. So if there is the live scenario, live tracking of trains that are flowing, then it impacts a lot of passengers out there. So imagine if in London, a metro runs for every 2 minutes. So imagine if a train is late by 30 seconds or 1 minute, and then it is a catastrophe. So a lot of people will be waiting, and it can delay the upcoming trains as well. So there you need a kind of visualization that is sort of a KPI chart, I would say, in that sense, where an operator can handle. So he just needs to see it in colors. So if there is something wrong, then if something pops up in red, or if some messages is popping up there, then he knows something has gone wrong, and he immediately calls the service centers or the engineering team. So that's how you need to visualize within yourself. So you need to make sure that you bring out the best out of the data. And for that, as I said, you have these open source tools these commercial tools in the market. And yeah, with that, I'll just pass on the baton to Sahar again.
Good. So Vijay talked about visualization and storytelling, which is, again, are very important. But in order to build those dashboards and visualization, we need to think of how they should be developed. And we can try and break those dashboards into like 4 different categories or more. So if we're looking from the right, then we have like BI dashboards, things like Tableau and ClickView and others, which essentially usually the way that they work is working against sort of a analytic database, mainly columnar databases, and just accessing them through like JDBC or SQL queries. And they're usually more on like historical data, not on real-time data. The other thing is like having real-time dashboards, things that keep on updating on an ongoing basis. Usually a lot of telemetry data, like measuring user activities over time, things like that. There are a bunch of open source frameworks in that area, like Grafana or Kibana with Elasticsearch and others. And those would usually work with the backend, which is time series organized, because it's charts that are organized by time. And a time series database is most efficient in doing queries on time windows. Other types of dashboard could be more operational data dashboards inside a mobile app, inside the web application, something written in JavaScript and connecting some sort of a backend. And that backend needs to provide RESTful sort of responses that are then sort of embedded into the graph, like D3 or others JavaScripting frameworks. In those cases, usually because it's RESTful APIs, you will use something like a NoSQL or a time series database if you have dashboards that can present sort of RESTful responses to those clients. And finally, there's also visualization done at the development phase or using the data science tools. Very dominantly, you'll have a data frame on your notebook, and then you just want to visualize that. So you use tools like Matplotlib or Bokeh or Plotly or any of the visualization packages within Python. And this is really the source for those would be a file or a data frame, that reading a file, a CSV file or a Parquet file or JSON file into a data frame and then just visualizing it. So we need to understand that for every type of dashboard, there may also need to be sort of a different type of storage or a way to store it. And then comes the question, how do we get data into that storage? Because data could come from different sources. It could be interactive data. In our notebook, we're creating a data frame, we're manipulating it, and we have a new data frame, and then we want to visualize it. We may have historical data that's coming from ETL jobs or from sort of historical databases. We may have real-time data coming through streaming APIs or RESTful APIs or all the telemetry mechanisms. And we may have also data which is enriched, essentially prediction results. We're running machine learning. We learn some new set of features, and then we want to visualize those features. So they didn't live in the past. They're things that we're trying, while we're processing things, predict new values and present them, or analyze new values and present them. And the real question, because like essentially we may want this type, all those different types of data be presented in all those different types of visualization tools or different places in the workflow, whether it's more of a production pipeline with real-time dashboards or a development pipeline with more of a Python visualization tools. The real question is, how do we like map any of those ingestion options to any of those storage options? And there's a technology that is more, we're talking more and more about it in the industry, called a feature store. And a feature store in the industry is something that usually is referred to when you're saying, you know what, I need to ingest data from different sources like those. And then I want to create a training set for my training jobs, which is more like batch orientation, very much like these BI dashboard things, what they want to see. And you may want to have also real-time data sets that are used for model serving and model inferencing, much more similar to sort of the NoSQL APIs that could be used for dashboards. So the general idea is that if we connect those, we take the model, the feature store, and address all those different APIs that we discussed. On one end like SQL or columnar storage like Parquet. On the other end, giving them NoSQL and time series APIs for those real-time dashboards and mobile apps, and finally being able to export them as data frames, so our Python visualization tools can just go and visualize and do some interesting stuff on it. And we can also ingest it from all those different sources, whether we're using real-time ingestion using streaming, or batch ingestion using ETL jobs, or just from within our notebook, we write this data into the feature store. So this is something that will have a complete webinar just on using feature stores for all those different tasks, training, serving, model monitoring, visualization, etc. So it just is sort of a sneak peek. But I will, and that is part of ML Run, which is our open source framework for machine learning automation. And as a managed service, it's also run on the Iguazio data science platform. So we refer to it usually as a multi-model feature store because it can present, you see, all those different models for SQL, for NoSQL, for data frames, for time series databases, etc., which is more extended, more expanded than the traditional view of feature stores in the world, which only have like a sort of offline and key value data products. With that, I'll move into, again, a very sneak peek demo of how those things usually work. So the general idea is that let's assume I have different types of data sets, and I'll do it from a notebook, but again, this could be done using real-time jobs or sort of batch jobs. So let's assume I have a set of data sets. Let's take this traditional view of stocks data. I may have stock quotes, and I may have some stock trades, and maybe some other information about those stocks. So I need to go into like a feature store and say, you know what, give me a client to the feature store. And I may want to just register those set of features like the stock quotes and the stocks, etc. So just as easy as saying, register those feature sets, learn all their sort of metadata and behavior from their data frame, ingest them into the feature store. And then there is essentially sort of a manifest with all of that. And I can go and ingest more and more elements into the feature store in real-time ingestion or batch ingestion. Then essentially the feature store start learning more and more data. And at a certain point, when I want to build a dashboard, I usually want to slice and merge multiple features from different feature sets, some information about users, some information about the product, or in this case, different information about the same stock at different point in time, or what is referred to as time travel. Then I could just go and say I need those features. Take this feature bid from the stock quotes. Take feature ask from my stock quotes, and rename it. Give me all the features from the stocks table. And just prepare an offline feature set, or an online feature set, or a time streaming feature set, and I could just go and visualize the accumulated set of features. And we can also do it in real time. Let's assume you have a client, a web client that needs to present some data. Then you could create sort of an endpoint and just query the endpoint for, give it the key, and it will respond back with all the values. So that's pretty cool. It abstracts away a huge amount of complexity. Going into the visualization aspect, so once we have all those features stored in a feature store, they could be queried by any form of API. And I'll show you a simple example. Let's assume we want to query those in a sort of more of a data frame or pandas API. We go into that client and we read this sort of table. We give it an apply filters if we want, and we get a data frame, and we could then visualize it. Or let's assume we want to run more analytics jobs or BI jobs, or we can even read the same feature set using Spark and visualize it using some of those larger scale visualization tools. Or if we want to build a BI dashboard that works against this, I'm reading it from a notebook, but the BI dashboard can access the same feature set from a JDBC driver and just create this feature set into the BI tool. And if I want to create a time series information and present it in like a Grafana dashboard, I can just go and ask it to be sort of visualizes time series and even give it sort of windowing aspects, aggregation aspects into the query and get back a set of time series that could be visualized in my notebook or in Grafana or in any other tool. So for example, if I want to visualize this information about the stocks in sort of my notebook, I can just take this time series data set that was generated for me, do some pivoting, and off I go. I have visualization in my notebook for data that was just ingested from the marketplace. So again, with that technology of essentially decoupling the production of the data and just storing it in different forms. Internally, it's actually stored in different layouts that are used for real-time access or for batch access. So it may actually be replicated a couple of times internally, but the pattern of ingestion and pattern of consumption become much simpler, and we avoid all this mess that we've seen in the previous slide. So again, this is really a sneak peek. I'm not going to go over all the aspects of a feature store. We're going to have a separate session just on that. And with that, opening it up for questions, and you, Sahar.
Okay, so first one here is for Vijay. Are you seeing an uptake in the usage of data visualization tools and techniques for AI or ML applications?
Yes, it is. I mean, as I said, as I showed, there are a lot of importance given to data visualizations. I mean, I could see a lot of tools picking up of late in the recent times. There have been much of wonderful updates that were stressed on data visualization tools itself. I mean, now the tools can by itself do a lot of things that you do with things that are on the open source as well. So it's getting a lot of attention, and a lot of stress has been put on visualization. So yes, it is.
Yep, well, that's not surprising considering what you've just shared with us. Another question for you is, are you seeing an increase in demand for dashboards or cockpits?
Depends. I mean, particularly during tough times like this, I mean, during pandemic times like these, a lot of companies are moving into digitalization. I mean, people are working from home and they are doing a lot of stuff. So that for sure, I mean, cuts out a lot of paper, a lot of documents that are stacked up on the roofs. And now people are moving into cloud space. So as you know, I mean, people are in need of dashboards and visualizations that they can see in just a click. That is the way. So just within a click, if you get all the details, then why do you have to shuffle around all the papers or all the documents that you need to browse around? So yes, there is a huge flurry of demands that has been going on. So earlier, just big players in the market, they used to go with these dashboards and fancy stuff, but nowadays even the second tier cities and the third tier cities, their businesses, they have been picking up nicely. So they wanted to get insights from their data so that they can make business, I mean, data driven business decisions. So yes.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, you put so much time and effort into getting the right data in, into analyzing it in the right way, developing your application, deploying it. You want to make sure that it's also consumed and that the data and the insights that you're generating are presented in a way that's easy to understand. So thank you for that. I think there are no more questions at this point. So with that, I just want to invite everyone who's listening in to take a look at some additional MLOps resources that we have and we offer on our website. If you go to iguazio.com/MLOps, you will find plenty of blogs, videos, and other sessions of the MLOps Live series, where industry experts share real-world experience and practical advice on all aspects of operationalizing machine learning. And we really hope that you enjoyed the webinar today. We're going to present the poll results in a second, but we will also be sharing the link to our Slack community once more so that we can stay in touch. So without further ado, let's take a look at the poll results. So for the first question, where are you on your data science journey? Most of you have an AI use case and are working on getting it to production. That's excellent news. And let's take a look at the second poll. So the most popular visualization tool is Python Viz, followed by Tableau, Power BI, and Spotfire. That's very interesting. And at this time, I'd like to thank you, Vijay and Yaron, very much for the very informative session and the demos. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. We invite you to continue chatting with us on our Slack channel, and we'll be sharing the link, like I said, in the chat box again right now. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sahar. Thanks, Yaron.